Recording in progress.
Good evening, everyone. Going to call this meeting to order at 4 p.m. Adoption of the agenda.
Prior to adopting the agenda, I would like to let it be known that we are going to amend the agenda to move item 7.5.4, which is the next steps for the Port Glasgow Trailer Park lands, to item 7.1. The recommendation is that West Elgin Council hereby adopts the regular council agenda for December 19th, 2024 as amended.
Okay, mover, please. Deputy Mayor Tellier, seconded. Councillor Statham, all in favour? It's carried. Disclosure of any pecuniary interest. Seeing none. We're going to move into a public meeting.
That West Elgin Council hereby proceed into a public meeting pursuant to the Development Charges Act.
Mover, please. Councillor Doherty, seconded. Councillor Denny, all in favour? That's carried. Thank you. The purpose of the public meeting.
The public meeting is to provide for a review of the development charges background study and to receive public input on the proposed policies and charges. The meeting is a mandatory requirement under the Development Charges Act. Prior to council's consideration of a bylaw, a background study must be prepared and available to the public a minimum of 60 days prior to the DC bylaw passage.
Okay, 4.2, Watson and Associates presentation. Development charges public meeting. December the 19th, 2024. Welcome, Daryl Habs. If you could carry on, please.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Pleasure to be here today. In just a moment, we'll pull up a brief presentation and we'll take you through a few slides regarding the development charges background study and bylaw that's been prepared for the municipality. This development charges public meeting is a mandatory requirement under the Development Charges Act and is part of the mandatory public process to allow for engagement with the public, with council, so that you can ask questions regarding the details in the background study and the proposed bylaw. Not a problem. I can continue on, then we can follow up. We can connect with the slides. So we started this process back in April of 2024, and we started working with staff, preparing the calculations, looking at policies, and working on preparing the details that go into the background study. And it was mentioned at the beginning, the background study needs to be available at least 60 days before council passes the bylaw. And so that was posted on the municipality's website on September 27th. And if you can go to slide 3, please. We had a council workshop on the day before we released the background study to present the calculated charges, the policies that we were proposing to include in the bylaw. And so we'll be going over those briefly again today, just for the benefit of the public and those tuning in. We're holding this public meeting tonight, and then subsequently tonight, council will consider passing the development charges bylaw. Next slide, please. And next slide. So development charges are a revenue tool used by municipalities to recover the capital costs associated with new development. And so we have new residential development, non-residential development. And because of that development, we need to build new infrastructure. And so we can recover the cost of that infrastructure from the new development. These costs are in addition to what a developer would normally pay for as part of their subdivision. And so you can think of a typical subdivision, the internal roads, the water mains, the sewer mains, the sidewalks. The developer typically pays for that. Development charges are for the broader infrastructure to connect the municipal network to that new development. Development charges are imposed under the Development Charges Act. It's a very prescriptive piece of legislation which guides how we prepare the calculations, impose the charges, and use the funds. Development charges are typically paid for at the time of building permit issuance. There are some nuances and some exceptions. I'll touch on that briefly later in the presentation. Next slide, please. And so this graphic really just shows the principle of the funding has to come from somewhere. And so the top bubble represents if we have new development, we have to pay for new infrastructure to accommodate that development. To the extent that it's related to, the costs are related to that new development, we can recover that cost with development charges and pay for it with development charges. Otherwise, the money has to come from somewhere. It would come from your existing property taxes or your reserve funds for property taxes or your rates if it was water and wastewater. Next slide, please. And so the Development Charges Act has something like 60 or 70 clauses, and there's years of tribunal case laws and rules that really guide how we prepare these calculations. But really to sum it down, the first thing we need to do is identify the amount, type, and location of growth, the servicing needs to accommodate that growth, and then the specific capital projects that are required, the specific costs to meet those servicing needs. And so in the background study in Chapter 4, we have all the detailed projects and the costs that are required to meet those needs. We then have to deduct the grant, subsidies, and other contributions you're going to get for those projects, any share of those costs that will benefit the existing community or replace existing assets, any amounts in excess of this historical service level calculation we have to do, and if you had a development charge before, any existing money in the development charge reserve funds. From there, we have our net costs associated with growth. We allocate it between residential and non-residential benefit, and then we divide it by the growth in each of those categories to get the charge. Next slide, please. And so put very simply, what we get is a development charge per unit for residential development and a development charge per square foot or per square meter for non-residential development. Next slide, please. And so the Development Charges Act has about 19 services that we're allowed to include in a development charge calculation, development charge bylaw. For water and wastewater, you already impose capital charges under the Municipal Act. So we left that alone so that you can continue to impose that. So for development charges, really what we looked at was services related to a highway, which is roads and public works, fire protection services, and parks and recreation services. In addition, we're able to take a look at growth-related studies. So these growth-related planning studies that we can recover. Next slide, please. And next slide. So the Development Charges Act has been around since the 1950s in some various forms. Really, the main piece of legislation was put in place in 1997. Over the last 5 years or so, there's been a number of changes to the legislation, which I'll briefly touch on some of the important amendments that were made. Next slide, please. And so I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation that development charges are typically paid for at the time of building permit issuance. There are some exceptions. And so if you're a rental housing or institutional development, you get to pay your development charge in installments, in 6 equal annual installments. And if you proceed through application process for a site plan or a zoning bylaw amendment, your development charge rate is frozen the date you submit your application. Okay, then once the municipality approves the application, you then have 18 months to pull that building permit, and you don't have to pay the increased rate. You pay whatever the rate was when you submitted the application. There was a removal of this mandatory deduction we used to have to make. They introduced another revenue tool for municipalities, which really only applies to high density development. So that's the community benefit charges. They added an exemption for universities. And then there's some additional reporting requirements for the treasurer. Next slide, please. So Bill 23 brought in a number of exemptions. So there's a number of reductions, exemptions required by the legislation for development charges. So if you're looking at building nonprofit housing, that's exempt. Affordable owned or rental units are exempt. And then ADUs are exempt. So if you're have a single, semi, or row house, you can add up to 2 units or 2 apartments, and you don't have to pay the development charges on that. A number of other changes, some of them were reversed, so I'll kind of skip over those ones because they're shown on the next slide. I mentioned that there is those installment payments and that rate freeze that's subject to interest. And then there's the requirement for municipalities to allocate the money in your reserve funds to specific projects over time. Next slide, please. So I mentioned there's the affordable exemptions under the legislation. To put it simply, the province has put out a bulletin which sets out a specific dollar amount. If the houses are sold for a dollar amount less than that, then they are exempt from development charges. You have to enter into an agreement with them to ensure that it remains affordable for a period of 25 years. So additional administrative burden, but if they can prove that they're going to remain affordable, they get the exemption. And then lastly, in the most recent changes, they did walk back some of the changes that were put in through Bill 23. So we used to have to phase in the development charge. We no longer have to do that. They took away the ability to recover for growth-related studies. We can include them again. And then they added some additional process changes. Next slide, please. And next slide. And I've already touched on this. This really just summarizes that certain types of development don't pay at the time of building permit. It's either the rate freeze or they get to pay in installments. Next slide, please. And so I touched on the mandatory exemptions that were brought into place through the recent legislative changes. But in addition, there are some mandatory exemptions that were already in place historically. And so upper tier, lower tier governments don't charge each other development charges, similarly for school boards. Industrial buildings can expand their footprint up to 50%, and they don't have to pay a development charge. And then as well, there was some language in there for exemptions for universities. Next slide, please. And so for the proposed bylaw, we looked at some proposed discretionary exemptions. Council has the ability to reduce the charge in whole or in part for different categories or classes of development. And so looking at some best practices, the most common exemptions across the province are places of worship and bona fide farms. I will note, and it's just under, not showing on the slide there, it's just under the bubbles there. Being covered by the menu bar, but what it does say is that there are a number of your comparators that comparator municipalities that do exempt industrial development as well. So when we get towards the end of the presentation, I'll identify which ones those are. Next slide, please. So indexing, so once we pass the development charge bylaw, if you pass it, the charge actually indexes with construction cost index to try to keep it in place with inflation, so you don't have to come back every year and do a study. You can do it once every 10 years, and the charge just indexes in between. Next slide, please. And so we talked about there's a rate freeze for certain types of development, site plan or zoning bylaw amendment applications. But what we also wanted to do to assist some developments that are probably already in the application process, that might be subdivisions or they don't meet the requirements for the site plan or zoning bylaw amendment applications, is to give a 6-month sort of grace period. And so that we can say, if your application's already been submitted, it's in the process, it's in the queue, we'll give you 6 months. If you pull the building permits before then you can also avoid having to pay development charges. And then after that, everyone will have to pay development charges. Next slide, please. So I mentioned at the beginning, development charges are to recover the capital costs in addition to what a developer would normally have to pay for. In the background study in Appendix E, we have a local service policy, which really goes through each of the different services and tries to set out, if, for example, for roads, what would a developer have to construct? So the roads internal to their subdivision, and what would we recover from a development charge? The roads external to the subdivision with a bit more detail. Next slide, please. And next slide. So in terms of the calculations, what we're looking at for growth in the community over the long term for 20 years is looking at over 1,000 people, so just under 1,100 people in about 790 new residential units. For non-residential development, we're looking at 1.17 million square feet of floor area. Next slide, please. And next slide. And so what this translates to, based on the capital needs that were identified in the background study, for a single detached home, I'd be looking at paying $9,951 for development charge. And that's for roads, fire, parks and recreation services, as well as growth studies. And you can see we have categories for the different types of development, other multiples as townhomes, and then we have different categories for apartments. And all the way to the right, we have the non-residential charge per square foot, which is $3.23. Next slide, please. And next slide. So to show where you compare to some of the neighboring municipalities, Dutton Dunwich just passed their development charges bylaw recently, their first development charges bylaw, and you can see your charge per residential is just slightly higher than them. Kind of puts you in the middle of the pack. You'll see for non-water wastewater services, Bayham does not have a development charge. And you can see those other two municipalities don't have a development charge, with Southwest Middlesex is currently looking at a background study and potentially imposing development charges in the future. Next slide, please. So for non-residential development, kind of again right in the middle, you'll have a couple of those municipalities again at the back end that don't have development charges for non-water wastewater services in the case of Bayham, or are looking at development charges. Next slide, please. And so for industrial development, you'll see a number of these are zero, and that's because Central Elgin, Dutton Dunwich, Southwold, and Chatham-Kent all exempt industrial development from development charges. Next slide, please. And next slide. So after just about done here, happy to answer any questions from members of council, from the public, and then we can formally close the public meeting. And then later this evening, council can consider the bylaw. Next slide, please. And that concludes my presentation. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from council? Yes, Councillor Denny.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through the chair. Thank you for your presentation. Back to the exemptions. So you mentioned that this exemption carve out for developments, homes will be a 6-month exemption until they get the building permit. Is that correct? Like they'll have 6 months from the time that we pass this motion to be exempt from development fees. So we have a potential development on the horizon on the south end of town, possibly 80 or 90 homes. He would, if he was going to take advantage of this exemption, would he have to pull all 80, 90 building permits prior to the 6-month window?
Yeah, so through the mayor, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Councillor Statham.
Thank you very much. Through the chair, is there any way for us to exempt certain developments if we chose to? So when we're passing the bylaw, we say, you know, this particular development is exempt from those charges. Is that a possibility?
So through the mayor, no, that's not a possibility. Under the legislation, you have to treat everyone the same. You can, under the Municipal Act, there is a provision that you're not allowed to do bonusing. And if you do that, you could fall under some concerns or issues with bonusing. So you have to treat everyone the same. And if you want to exempt a certain type of development, you can do that, but not one-off development considerations. The only way you can do that is if you had a grant program separate and apart from the DC. You'd have a separate bylaw. You say, here's my grant program. These types of developments, let's say it's industrial development that provides a certain amount of employment or meets these parameters, then we can provide a grant to pay the DC from taxes, but that's the only way you can do it on a case-by-case basis.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Tellier.
Thank you. And through the chair, thank you for your presentation once again. Been a lot of talks with our stakeholders in the area for affordable homes. Lots of Zoom meetings, just under it's Bill 134, is that correct? For the affordable homes and good jobs?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, still a little unclear exactly. So it does not affect them at all if it's within what kind of a realm of an affordable home? Like what is the parameters for that?
So through the mayor, I'd have to look up the exact dollar figure, but the bulletin that's put onto the municipal affairs website sets out a specific dollar amount. So say, for example, it's $340,000 for a single detached home. If the sales price is below that and they enter into an agreement to agree to that, then they would be exempt from development charges.
So what if we had a builder come in, this is the case we're looking at, and someone comes in and builds small, tiny homes and rents them for $900? Like the builder would have to declare how much those homes were and then go from there?
Yeah, so through the mayor, they would have to enter into an agreement to ensure that they would remain affordable based on the dollar values set out in the bulletin. And then if they were, let's say, doing like a big development and they were renting all of them out, they would also get potentially get the rental discount, which is part of the legislation. But they could also meet the affordable rental criteria, and then they would have to ensure that the rents remain affordable for a period of 25 years. But it's
Okay.
possible, yeah.
That's what I understood. I just wanted to make sure that that was correct. And then I'm a little worried about, say we're lucky enough that someone wants to build, have a business or a factory in this area and create some commerce. I'm a little worried about the development charges for that. That's a discussion for later, but just something to think about. Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Any more questions from council? Councillor Denning.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through the chair. Just while we have you here, could you just explain to us all the definition from your perspective of municipal bonusing that you referenced?
So through the chair, I'd have to go back to the exact words, but I believe under the Municipal Act, you're not allowed to give essentially an advantage to any commercial or industrial business, as I understand it. I can go back and pull like the exact words of that section of the Municipal Act. So that's typically where, we're not allowed to on a one-off basis just give exemptions because of that section, but I'd have to go back and look at the exact words there.
Any further questions? Any public comments or questions? Seeing none, could I have the recommendation, please?
First recommendation is that council accept the public meeting presentation regarding development charges presented by Darrell Labs, Watson and Associates, and that council will consider the development charges bylaw in the bylaw portion of the agenda.
Okay, mover, please. Deputy Mayor Tallery, seconded. Councillor Statham, all in favour? It's carried. Thank you. Thank you. So with that, we'll adjourn the public meeting.
That West Elgin Council hereby adjourn the public meeting pursuant to the Development Charges Act and proceed into regular session.
Mover, please. Councillor Doherty. Seconded. Deputy Mayor Tellier, all in favour? It's carried. Thank you. So we go to the adoption of the minutes.
The West Elgin Council hereby adopt the minutes of the regular council meeting, November 28th, 2024, and the special council meeting, December 5th, 2024, as presented.
Okay, mover, please. Councillor Denning, seconded. Councillor Statham, all in favour? It's carried. Businesses arising from the minutes. Seeing none. We move on to staff reports. And we go on to,
So first up, we're going to have item 7.5.4, next steps for the Port Glasgow Trailer Park lands.
So, through the chair.
Yep.
The report outlines 4 recommendations to council, but before I get to the recommendations, I would like to go through the report in great detail. At the November 14th council meeting, West Elgin Council heard 3 delegations from residents of the Port Glasgow Trailer Park, expressing concerns about the park's future. Some residents emphasized its role as their permanent residence, highlighting uncertainties surrounding potential sale discussions. However, council holds the responsibility to prioritize decisions that benefit the entire West Elgin community. This report evaluates the current situation, future use, development potential, and the advantages of selling the trailer park, offering several recommendations aligned with municipal goals. The Port Glasgow Trailer Park, located at 8650 Furnival Road, covers approximately 10 hectares or 25 acres and is part of the lakeshore area under the West Elgin official plan. Zoned as recreational vehicle park under the West Elgin zoning bylaw. It was acquired in 1986 and the municipality assumed operational control on January 1st of 2000. Operating seasonally from May 1st to October 31st, the trailer park is a significant municipal asset, hosting over 150 trailers and more than 300 residents. However, its operations divert municipal staff from essential functions and capital projects. Despite its scale, the trailer park has operated outside the municipality's core responsibilities and offers limited benefits to the general community. The trailer park is currently designated as a seasonal recreational use area under the Port Glasgow secondary plan. Any change to this designation would require an amendment to the official plan, reflecting the need for careful consideration of planning policies and development constraints. Development constraints: the proximity of the property to Lake Erie and existing ravines significantly limits redevelopment opportunities, particularly for permanent residential use. Approximately half of the land is unsuitable for redevelopment due to natural constraints, including environmental sensitives and terrain challenges. While the property is serviced by municipal water, it lacks sanitary sewer infrastructure. The existing system in Rodney cannot accommodate additional load from the property, and relying on septic systems for a subdivision development would be unsustainable and potentially environmentally damaging. Environmental considerations. Environmental guidelines informed by consultations with Lower Thames Valley Conservation Authority advise against significant development near the Lake Erie shoreline. The area is subject to environmental risks such as erosion and flooding, further restricting the scope of feasible redevelopment. Official plan guidance. The updated official plan prioritized growth within settlement areas and promotes land use strategies aligned with this directive. A shift in land use to allow permanent residential development on the trailer park property would conflict with these goals and undermine the plan's broader objectives. Economic and tourism value. As a seasonal recreational facility, the trailer park supports tourism and contributes to the municipality's diversified economic base. Maintaining this use aligns with the municipality's strategy to sustain a robust tourism industry while ensuring an appropriate mix of land uses. The park serves as a valuable asset for attracting seasonal visitors and bolstering local businesses. Benefits of selling the trailer park. Selling the trailer park presents several advantages that align with the municipality's financial and operational priorities. Number one is increasing the tax base. Currently, as municipal property, 70% of the park's assessment value is excluded from taxation. Upon its sale, the property would be reassessed, generating a significant increase in annual taxation revenue, which could contribute to the municipality's financial health. Funding critical infrastructure projects. The proceeds from the selling park could be directed towards critical municipal infrastructure projects, such as road repairs and utility upgrades. These improvements would directly benefit the community at large and enhance essential services. Focus on core municipal functions and municipal jurisdiction. Owning and operating the trailer park places a strain on municipal resources, particularly during active season. Selling the park would allow municipal staff to redirect their efforts toward core responsibilities, improving operational efficiency. The operation of the trailer park benefits the residents of the trailer park, but not the public at large. Ontario municipalities have a mandate to provide services for the public. The trailer park operations may reasonably be characterized as commercial activity for the benefit of very few residents that do not have special needs. As such, the management of the trailer park could reasonably be characterized as outside the jurisdiction of the municipality. Equity and sustainability. A sale conducted at fair market value would prioritize the interest of the broader community, ensuring equitable treatment and fostering long-term financial sustainability for the municipality. Reserve funds. The Port Glasgow Trailer Park Reserve Fund balance as of December 31st, 2023 stands at $741,000 and 741,506. These reserves were established to ensure the general tax base does not subsidize the park's operations or capital improvements. The funds belong to the municipality, and only West Elgin Council holds the authority to redirect them. Recommendations. The reason why there are 4 recommendations is to provide council with multiple options while ensuring that trailer park residents are taken care of and given sufficient notice to prepare accordingly. The recommendations are as follows. Recommendation number 1, operate the trailer park for 2025. That West Elgin Council considers operating the park for the 2025 calendar year and direct staff to bring the 2025 Port Glasgow Trailer Park fees and charges bylaw for review and approval at the next council meeting. Recommendation number 2, offer opportunity to residents. That West Elgin Council provide trailer park residents the opportunity to submit offers for consideration with a submission deadline of June 30th, 2025. And recommendation 3, advertise for sale if no satisfactory offers. If no satisfactory offers is received from trailer park residents, it is recommended that the property be advertised for sale on the open market to ensure the municipality receives fair market value. There is also an optional recommendation number 4. Staff recommends that council direct the procurement of a professional appraiser to determine the current market value of the trailer park. In conclusion, while the trailer park offers tourism and economic value in its current form, its environmental constraints, infrastructure limitations, and operational demands suggest that selling the property could provide significant benefits. By doing so, the municipality can enhance its financial position, invest in critical infrastructure, and better focus on its core functions, all while aligning with its official plan and long-term goals. Thank you.
Thank you. Comments from council? Yes. Deputy Mayor Tellier.
Through the chair, are we speaking on recommendations now or having just a regular discussion?
Speak on your preferred recommendations.
Yeah, so I like recommendation 1 and 2, but I like them hybrid. I know that's not an option here, but that's my feeling. I don't think anybody should be without a home this summer. I don't think that would be something we'd want to see anybody not have a home for the summer and continue on. So my recommendation would be number 1, that for the calendar year that we still bring the fees and charges and still have the park open for the summer, along with number 2, so hybrid, that the park residents have that opportunity to submit an offer for consideration for June 30th, because that would give them time to think that 6 months, a little more than 6 months. So those are my feelings on that for the Port Glasgow Trailer Park. Just don't want to see anybody scrambling. We know how rare housing can be for the summer when they return, or I know a lot of people use this as their home for the summer and away for the winter. So those are my feelings on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else got any feelings? Councillor Statham.
Thank you, through the chair. Magda, I just had a question for you. When you picked a submission deadline of June 30th, what was the justification for that? Is that so that the park can function next year in 2026?
No, I think if if the trailer park residents are serious about purchasing the park, I think 6 months timeframe should be sufficient to get organized and submit proposal to council.
Just to follow up through the chair, I think one of the concerns that was brought to my attention was just that a lot of the residents of the park live elsewhere outside of the municipality, and they won't be able to get together as a group to discuss until I believe the date was May. So it doesn't give them much time, and I just wondered if we might be able to amend that date and push it back a little bit further, just to give some accommodation to their first annual general meeting.
I'm in agreement with exactly what you said, because if it doesn't open till, say, April, May, June, you know, it's absolutely, it's not long enough to be able to organise themselves and get a true picture of everything. I certainly go with recommendation number 1 and recommendation number 2, but I would like to see the June 30th pushed back.
I would agree with that as well, Mr. Mayor.
Anyone else want to comment? I'm sorry, I can't accept from the floor right now.
Through the chair, I am in agreement with option 1, as well as option 2 with a pushed back submission deadline. I think June 30th is too aggressive. It gives them time to organize and discuss and work together and collaborate with council and staff in order to put something together that is meaningful and representative of the entire residents of the trailer park.
Yeah, Deputy Mayor Tellier.
Through the chair, thank you. I was thinking more of a September deadline. I don't know what everyone else is thinking, but something to think about.
That gives them lots of time to regroup and get everybody's opinion there and get something sorted out. That would work. I know I'm jumping the gun, but I know you have an advisory committee, and we'd certainly like, I think, to send 2 councillors along and join that advisory committee, and start off as we mean to carry on, and then that way we're working as a team all together. Councillor Denny.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through the chair. Okay, so first off, Magda, thank you for you and your staff for putting together that presentation and really attempting to break down for everybody in the community the bigger picture here of all of the challenges that council and West Elgin must address in the next few years, and why we are making the difficult decisions that we are, in the hopes that the decisions that we make are for the best for the most amount of people. And I know that that's a really difficult thing. Very, very open to pushing that date back to September. I would suggest that there could be a little bit of space in between now and then for the opportunity for counter discussions, and not just waiting to the deadline, because perhaps there's an opportunity to make adjustments to an offer that will satisfy all parties. And what I mean by that is I'm not thinking that we need to go out and get an appraisal at this point. I think that we let the residents of Port Glasgow Trailer Park go to work and figure out an offer that's going to be justifiable to all of the taxpayers in West Elgin, and find a creative way to provide us taxpayers with the value that we need to justify this. And by that, I mean, it does not necessarily mean that the purchase price is the be all and end all. Perhaps there is a creative way that everybody gets what they want by perhaps going at this over time or some other creative way. So take the time to figure out what that looks like. Be mindful, of course, of all of your needs as trailer park residents and that beautiful little spot you have, but also be aware of the other needs that we are trying to balance out when we are going to be sitting making a decision on an offer that hopefully will satisfy everybody. So thank you, all of you, for being here this evening. Thank you for all the back and forth, the dialogue that we've had. You've been heard. We appreciate all of the thoughts and the concerns, and truly has helped us shape our thinking on this really, really important issue. So thank you, and open again to an amended option 1 deadline, option 2, and option 3, and proposing that we wait on the appraisal option 4 for a little further down the road in the event that we need to go that route. Thank you.
Through the chair.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is possible, but I'm curious if we can not have a submission deadline quite yet, recognizing that we kind of got a thumbs up for us or council members being on the advisory committee and beginning that conversation and providing enough time for the advisory committee to determine what a feasible date for them is. And then bringing that back to council. So it's just like a predetermined, to be determined date, if you will, so that everyone has enough time to decide and figure out what is an actual feasible date. So no one's kind of stuck to a hard date if that's not actually possible.
Okay, it's feasible. I have a hand up at the back, and I don't know whether, can I allow? I'll just allow one speaker, and that's it, because we got a lot of people in the room. We'll be here till we got a big agenda. Yes, sir. I'd like you to come up to the. I'd like you. Yes.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for allowing me this opportunity to speak. I've heard we had 1, 2, 3, and 4 options or that thing. I think we're missing option 5, being that do the people of West Elgin want to sell the park? I think we're thinking of what it's going to bring us if we sell it, how much, the best. What alternatives? Are we kicking people out? Are they going to have a thing next year? I think if we're all, and Mr. Councillor Denning pointed out that what's best for all. I think if we're so sure of ourselves that what is best for all, then shouldn't we put our municipality involved in it and ask the question, maybe put it to a vote? Do we want to sell this piece of property? Is it in our best interest? Can we think of other ways to afford to have that infrastructure done? I'm sure with all the smart minds that are sitting in this room, we can think of other ways other than selling off pieces of our property. Like I've stated before, what's going to be next when we sell something that we run into a problem? I think we got to think outside the box maybe and think it's not for sale. And I think if you ask the people of who you all represent, do you want to sell it? I think you may find out a surprising answer that we don't want to get rid of this piece of property. And if push comes to shove, I think the people of this West Elgin will show you we don't want to sell. We're trying to do this in a very nice manner. We're trying to be very soft-spoken. I don't dislike anyone on council. I think you're doing a job that I wouldn't want to do. I think you're doing a fantastic job. I appreciate all the numbers you've had to crunch and everything you've had to do to get us here. But I think we're missing out the one factor that maybe people don't want to get rid of that piece of property. Maybe there's another way to take care of our infrastructure problem, and it's not selling out some of the little things that call us West Elgin and makes us a home. So maybe the next time we're talking, we'll all have this and we'll be able to move forward with other ideas. That's just my thought. Thank you, council, for letting me speak again. Mr. Mayor, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sure council heard every word you said, and I'm sure they'll take that in mind. Thank you. Have we a recommendation there, please?
So prior to reading the recommendations, so we're going with a hybrid of recommendation number 1, recommendation number 2. We're removing a submission deadline. And offer or recommendation number 3 and number 4 are off the table. Is that correct? Okay. So the recommendation is that West Elgin Council receives the report from M. Badura, CAO Treasurer, regarding next steps for the Port Glasgow Trailer Park lands, and that West Elgin Council chooses the following recommendations. Number one, that West Elgin Council considers operating the park for the 2025 calendar year and directs staff to bring the 2025 Port Glasgow Trailer Park fees and charges bylaw for review and approval at the next meeting of council. And that West Elgin Council provide trailer park residents the opportunity to submit offers for consideration. A third option as well is to, Mr. Mayor, you mentioned having 2 representatives from council join the trailer park advisory committees.
I would like that, and I think council would like it too.
Do I have 2 members of council that are willing to join that committee?
Councillor Doherty and Councillor Statham.
And the third is that West Elgin Council approve Councillor Doherty and Councillor Statham to join the Port Glasgow Trailer Park Advisory Committee.
Okay, mover, please. Councillor Doherty, seconded. Deputy Mayor Tellier, all in favour? That's carried. Thank you. I'm going to now take a short recess. 5 minutes, so. We're going to resume the meeting and we're going to go 7.1, which is building. Monthly building report, November 2024.
The recommendation is that West Elgin Council hereby receives the report from Corey Pemberton, CBO, regarding Building Department Summary Report for the month of November 2024.
Any questions from council? Seeing none, a mover, please. Councillor Statham, seconded. Councillor Daney, all in favour? It's carried, thank you. So we go to 7.2, fire. Monthly fire report, October and November 2024. Welcome, Jeff.
Thank you.
I'll leave it over to you.
Sorry?
I'll leave it up to you.
Oh, yes, thank you. Good afternoon, council, and through the mayor to council. It's actually a dual month, so for October and November. The monthly report is included before you. Just to highlight a couple things, it was an active couple months there with incidents, some pub ed events, and also we had recruitment. So recruitment, we do have 7. We're excited to have 7 new recruits joining us who will all be attending the recruit class starting in January through the county. And also there was a note in there about the provincial fire protection grant. It was focused on cancer prevention. We just actually found out this afternoon that we did get approval for that grant. So there's some adjustment to the totals, but I think it was in the neighborhood of 16,000. Again, based on cancer prevention. So the focus is on some laundry room ventilation for safe cleaning of bunker gear and equipment. So happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from council? Yes, Councillor Denny.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through the chair. Thank you again for being here, Chief MacArthur. I was just curious, with your reporting, I was wondering if you would consider doing like a comparables when you do your reports, like what last year looked like, maybe even on an annual basis, so that we can see what trends are happening. I know you're really great at explaining all of that, but just to have it on paper so we can see what 22 look like versus 23 and 24, just so that we understand what you're up against.
Sure. And through the chair, is that just for clarification, is that for incidents or overall department activity or just specifically?
I'm open to whatever you're thinking, but I was thinking more incident volume, call volume.
Sure. Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay. Anything else? Recommendation, please.
The recommendation is that West Elgin Council hereby receives the monthly fire report for October and November 2024 from Jeff MacArthur, Fire Chief, for information purposes.
Okay, mover, please. Councillor Doherty. Seconded. Councillor Statham. All in favour? It's carried. Thank you. Operations and Community Services, monthly operations, November 2024. Lee, would you take it over, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, this is the monthly operations report for November 2024, and I think everybody's had a chance to look at it. It's just a brief update on operations that were carried out during the month, so I'd be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Any questions from council? Okay, recommendation, please.
That West Elgin Council hereby receives the report from Lee Gosnell, Manager of Operations and Community Services, for information purposes.
Okay, mover, please. Councillor Denning, seconded. Deputy Mayor Tellier, all in favour? It's carried. Thank you. And we go to 7.3.2. 2025 dust suppressant tender. Lee, it's over to you again, I think.
Yeah, through the chair. So this report is just seeking council's permission to initiate the tender process for our dust suppressants for the 2025 season before our 2025 budget has actually been brought forward. The reason for that is that some of you may have heard one of our neighboring municipalities, which was a fairly large contract in the area, has chosen to suspend its dust suppressant program for the 2025 season. And so certainly there are companies that supply product into that, that we're supplying product for that contract that are now searching for a home for that product. So I think that this would be an opportune time. I feel that that would make our tender more competitive, and that could afford some better pricing if we go early. Once those companies start to find a home for that product, then that competitive edge is lost. So,
okay, good thinking. Any questions from council? Yes, Councillor Denning.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through the chair. Well, I just got to know what this neighboring municipality is going to do in replacement of dust suppressant and why they're ending their program.
So they are not using a replacement, they're just doing without. So I think that it will be a good study to see how that works out for them, and if they're able to sustain that decision to do without.
Mm-hmm.
Are the councillors in that particular area, in the rural areas, turning their phones off in the spring?
Well, like I said, I'm glad they're the ones that are trying it, not us. We feel, staff here in West Elgin feel that the program is necessary and does provide value for the residents. So if we can take advantage of that situation and possibly get a little better pricing for us for the 2025 season, I think that's well worth it.
Any more questions from council? Recommendation, please.
The recommendation is that West Elgin Council hereby receives the report from Lee Gosnell, Manager of Operations and Community Services, and that West Elgin Council approves initiating the tender process for dust suppressant prior to 2025 budget deliberations.
Mover, please. Councillor Denning, seconded. Councillor Doherty. All in favour? It's passed. Thank you. So we go on to 7.4. Clerks. 7.41, pound keeping services.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through the chair. So this is brought to council today as we are coming to the end of our agreement with the London Humane Society. So just a little bit of background, in 2022 is when West Elgin switched to the Humane Society of London Middlesex when the Glencoe Animal Shelter closed. The switch was primarily due to limited resources available for canine pickup and pound keeping, and a joint RFP along with the Middlesex County was developed. The current agreement authorizes pickup and transportation of canines when the bylaw officer is unavailable, which unfortunately due to limited number of hours with bylaw in West Elgin, most canine calls are with outside of the bylaw hours. So the current agreement was dated June 26, 2024, with an expiry date of December 31st of this year. And included was the total canine and pound keeping services was $10,689.76 in 2023, $10,899.90 year to date in 2024. So this Humane Society is located on Clark Road in London, and using this building, it's approximately 65 kilometers there. So each call would be double that, based on, but that, you know, depends on pickup area. It could be a little bit further, it could be a little bit closer. So we had a total of 11 canine intakes in 2023 and 15 full year was of intakes in 2024. Plus there was 14 golden retriever puppies that were brought in by bylaw enforcement. So the renewal options, and I have spoke to, so they have offered an 18-month contract. However, I have talked to Humane Society, and they would be willing to go with a 1 year. Also speaking with Southwest Middlesex, they actually just renewed for a 1 month, which allowed them to get their request for tender out, because they are also interested in switching back to the Glencoe shelter for obvious reasons, with it being so close. The cost of it is quite a bit lower. So recently we were contacted by Jody Bedour, who is the new owner with her husband for the Glencoe Animal Shelter. It's now called the Southwest Middlesex Animal Shelter. So they're going to be offering services of canine pickup. It also indicated cats as well. I strongly believe that if that were to be included, that our cost would be increased significantly if there was a cost if we were picking up cats as well. So looking to get council's direction if they would like to go with the proposed 18-month renewal with Humane Society of London Middlesex, if they would like to go with a 1 year renewal with them. And also there is the option I can reach out and possibly doing a 3-month, which would, we could get a request for tender out to both Glencoe and London Humane Society.
Yeah, I think there's significant saving with the one from Glencoe. I was looking at the hourly rate, which is around half price. And then we've got the kilometres that are added on. And obviously they're going to be less because they haven't got to travel so far. So we got quite a savings from our local people. So I would only think it's fair that they are allowed to send in their quotes, and then we can compare.
So would council like to go with a 1 year term or with a 3-month term? What is council's thoughts?
I think personally, I think the latter. And then that gives Glencoe, if they're really serious, time to put their prices in. I don't know what council, it's open to council. Do you,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through the chair.
Mr. Denny?
Did I understand that Southwest had like it was a 5-year contract?
1 month is what they renewed for 1 month with Humane Society.
Yep.
And they have already put their tender documents out, and they did a request for tender. So there's no 5 year.
There wasn't.
No. As far as what they're doing going forward with Glencoe, I'm not sure. The original, you may be thinking the 5 year was the original proposal from the Glencoe Animal Shelter. They did propose 5-year term. However, I don't feel I would recommend a 5-year term with a new provider.
Because they're
No.
Correct.
I see.
Yeah.
So perhaps a shorter term to see how they do and then revisit this.
Yeah. So what this recommendation is asking is right now how long to renew with London Humane Society, because we do have to have something in place for the interim. If we go a 3-month or even a 6-month, whichever council chooses, that would give staff time to get the RFT documents out and have those providers submit the documentation.
Okay, thank you. I understand. Yeah, I'm good with that 3 months with London, giving Glencoe some time to prepare a quote.
Deputy Mayor Tellier.
You're not looking.
Thank you. And through the chair, having spoken with Jody, the provider for the Southwest Middlesex shelter, yeah, I'd go ahead with the 3 months. She seems very committed. Yes, we don't have anything going on for bylaw ways for roaming cats. Very difficult to. No, there's a saying. It's like herding cats. That's why we don't have a bylaw, I believe. So anyway, it'd be very difficult. But yeah, speaking with Jody Bedore, very committed, very interested in keeping things in our area, and has built the new shelter from the ground up because they had to rezone because their zoning was taken away and they had to start from the beginning. So yeah, 3-month commitment is what I agree with, and then looking at thereafter what happens with our contract.
Anyone else? It seems that the 3 months option is favourable right now. And then we can assess them both together and make a decision. So if you've got a recommendation, we'll take it, please.
The recommendation is that West Elgin Council hereby receives a report from Terry Toshchuk, clerk, regarding pound keeping services, and that council hereby approve a 3-month term renewal with the Humane Society London Middlesex for a period of December 31st, 2024, ending March 31st, 2025, and that council directs staff to prepare the request for tender for renewal upon agreement expiry.
Okay, mover, please. Councillor Doherty. Seconded. Deputy Mayor Tellier, all in favour? Thank you. Carried. That takes us to 7.4.2. Backyard hens. Final bylaw and application process.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through the chair. This is just brought back for the final approval. So the amendments were made to the bylaw as council requested with the 100 permits for the pilot project. Sorry. Yes, permits. So that has been amended. And then it was also noted from our planner that it was missed the Hamlet residential zoning to be added in there as well. So those were the two amendments. So attached to the package is what the application would look like when we print it out. Of course, it's an online application. It'll come in directly to staff for approval. We'll have bylaw, of course, go out and do the inspections. There is a couple forms that need to be filled out for the application and the declaration, and they do need to be signed at the municipal office in front of a commissioner. So that would be either myself or Magda. So this will go live on our website on January 2nd once staff is back from the holidays. So I know it indicated January 1st, but we're not in the office. So as soon as we have staff back in the office, it'll go live on our website, and that'll be yeah.
Okay.
Was there any other questions, concerns with the application, with the bylaw before we go live with it?
Councillor Statham.
Thank you. Through the chair, I'm so sorry, Terry. I just had one question. I noticed in the bylaw, it says that all backyard hens should be at least 4 months old. I know, it often happens where residents will buy chicks and then, sort of raise them. So I just wondered if there was a justification for that or what the purpose of that point was. I don't know if there's a comment on that from staff.
I think, well.
So, sorry, Mr. Mayor, you go ahead.
No, I was just thinking when you're thinking of hens or chickens that age, they're usually point of lay, and I think that's what staff really thought was going to happen. But I know for a fact a lot of people buy day-old chicks because they're fattening, and when they're fattening birds, and you buy them as day-old chicks, that they're mixed, that there's hens and cockerels in them because it's difficult to tell at that age, or you buy them as hatched. But you don't keep them all. They never get to crowing stage. They're 8-9 weeks old when they go to slaughter. So they were never taken really into account. all these licenses are, when you're talking about what we've looked at, are point of lay hens and laying hens, but not white meat birds. That's where I see the problem.
Thank you. I think we're fine. Let's just move forward. Thank you.
Any other questions on it? Okay, let's have a recommendation then. please.
The recommendation is that West Elgin Council hereby receives the report from Terry Toshuk clerk regarding backyard urban hens, final report and bylaw, and that council approve the application package as presented. And further, that council approve the bylaw as presented in the bylaw portion of the December 19th, 2024 agenda.
Okay, looking around, can I have a mover, please? Councillor Statham. Seconded, Councillor Denning. All in favour? It's carried, thank you. Okay, so we go to 7.4.3. 2025 fees, recreation and pool.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That one, I'll speak on that one.
Okay.
Yes, yes. So at the last meeting, when the initial fees and charges were brought forward, there was discussion, some notes made from our recreation committee, specifically regarding the pool fees, the Aquafit, and the use of the recreation center. So I did, and the two comparisons that were used were Southwest Middlesex and Dutton Dunwich, just to keep somewhat comparable. So Aquafit was requesting a monthly or a seasonal pass, and to use a comparative approach, again, Southwest Middlesex and Dutton Dunwich 2020 fees and charges were obtained. So Southwest Middlesex, they are offering a monthly pass of $80 or an early bird of $72, which is a 10% discount if it's purchased between April 1st and April 30th. Dutton Dunwich, they no longer offer seasonal or monthly passes for Aquafit. And the per person, so it's simply a per person visit, and it's $4.50. So then it was also noted, the Recreation Committee would like to see some lower fees for the Recreation Center for various events, being bridal showers, baby showers. So using the, again, Southwest Middlesex and Dutton Dunwich, they use different approaches to their pricing, which includes like a Monday to Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday for more premium rates, and then as well discounted rates for residents that live in the municipality versus some non-resident rates. So Dutton Dunwich, their community center has a similar capacity limit, fully accessible and fully stocked kitchen. With the comparative at Southwest Middlesex, the Eckford Community Center, it's about half the size and capacity as our recreation center. So with our facility rates, they're straightforward. But this is just this. I'm seeking council's input on how they would like to move forward with this. We haven't passed our fees and bylaws yet. The intention is, I believe, to have that at the next meeting to move forward with that. So if there's input from council on how we can adjust these for the pool, specifically for the Aquafit, or leave them as status quo, and then as well for the recreation center, if there's some kind of a discounting program that they would like to see, or again, leave it status quo. Certainly during 2025, if we want to see a more comprehensive comparative, I have no issues doing that. I can reach out to many other municipalities, do a more comprehensive study on what recreation and fees are for pools and recreation, if that would like to be brought forward, but that wouldn't be for then it'd be the 2026 fees and charges. So just looking for council's direction on how they would like to move forward with this one.
So just looking at those prices, how comparable from last year? There's no major
for ours?
For
No,
us.
no.
No major rises at all.
No.
So that's very favourable, I would say. Anyway, council, council got any questions? Deputy Mayor Tellier.
Through the chair, I really like the idea that was expressed last time and you put in your report of the early bird. If we could, I don't know how feasible it is to do it for many of our programs, but for sure for the Aquafit to get their monthly passes in, and or maybe even seasonal passes in, to the early bird, but thank you for your time with this report. It's really comprehensive and yeah, I think it's a great idea to do all that. So I think that those are very reasonable prices for our services.
Any further questions? Councillor Denning.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through the chair. Just a quick comment with regards to Aquafit and then also the rec center. If these changes are inspired and intended to create conveniences for the residents, like Aquafit paying once a month or for the season or whatever, I think that's great. I just think that we need to be very careful about discounting anything at this point, because if we discount for one, then I think inevitably there's going to be others that are going to be asking for the same sort of treatment. And of course, we have a lot of responsibility, financial responsibilities, and things are not going down in price. Inputs are not going down in price. So I think that I want to be very careful about the discussion about discounting things, because I believe it is a slippery slope. The clerk's report shows that we are within reason of neighboring facilities. So let's just be really, really careful, especially as we dive into budget time here, to be responsible. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Oh, I think we can.
So at this time, are we just receiving this as information only, or is that the consensus with council? Are we providing a early bird discount? Right now, we don't offer a monthly pass for the Aquafit, but we do offer the 10 sessions where they get one session essentially for free. It's $90.
I think, yeah, Deputy Mayor.
Through the chair, could we bring it back to the rec and ask them and then bring it back to council? Is that reasonable?
We certainly could. The next rec meeting, however, is after the next council meeting. That's the only challenge.
Okay, just a thought.
Yeah.
Well, we've received it,
Mm-hmm.
so let's go from there.
Okay.
That we've received the figures that you've put in before us.
And so I'll make a note of that, Deputy Mayor, to put more discussion on the next recreation meeting. Yeah. So for tonight, the recommendation is that West Elgin Council hereby receives the report from Terry Toshchuk, clerk, regarding 2025 fees and fees for recreation and pool as information only.
Okay, move it, please. Deputy Mayor Tellier. Seconded, Councillor Denning. All in favour? That's carried, thank you. 7.5, Finance Administration. 7.5.1, 2025 Municipal Insurance Renewal. If anybody read all the way through it, there was a lot of reading.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So every year in December, unfortunately, we have to renew our insurance. And last few years, the municipality was affected by significant increases. Last year, we had a break. Our increase was not as high. It was only 3%. This year, we're at 4.8%. Prior to that, in 2023, we had an increase of 22%. Overall, from 2019 to 2025, our insurance premiums have increased 114%. So we're currently paying more than double of what we paid in 2019. The municipality renewal contains a summary of the cost for insurance coverage. Most of the increase in the amount of $18,884 or 4.82% is due to the property liability. That component of the premium is showing an increase of 10% or $9,900. Basically, property liability is there's quite a high increase across the board. And it's being influenced by both local and global factors such as natural disaster and climate change. At the same time, rising construction cost and higher number of small claims and inflation is also contributing to rate increases. General liability component of the premium shows an increase of $7,797 or 3%. Usually general liability component is greatly affected by the hard market and the municipality's past claim experience. We're not really being affected, so it's just in our situation, it's just a hard market. In my report, I provided council a graph how our cost was rising from 2019, as well as provided a snippet of cost analysis in detail to see, so council can see where the cost is fluctuating. Last year, when we were renewing our municipal insurance, council were thinking of, directing staff to go out to the market and submit a request for proposal. However, I spoke to our municipal insurance representative, and there is not a lot of companies that are currently insuring municipalities. There are 4 companies currently, but only 2 of them have viable options for municipalities. Aon has significantly reduced its presence in the municipal sector, dismantling its public sector program and retaining less than 5% of the municipal client market share in Ontario. There's also BFL. BFL is struggling as well, with renewal terms becoming increasingly difficult to offer and a market share of less than 10%. So there's only 2 players on the market right now. It's Intact and Marsh. So, and the premiums are very comparable. So I at this point, we don't have a choice but to renew our municipal insurance.
Okay, thank you. There was just one thing I noticed when I was reading through, is that the horse barns appear to be still on it, and the horse barns have disappeared quite a while ago.
Sorry.
The horse barns at Rodney, on
Yeah.
the Rodney Rec, where
Yes, so Mr. Mayor, this was already indicated in our insurance, but however, there was other concerns that have been submitted to the municipality. We will be going through that report in great detail and removing all the assets. There's another thing that I didn't mention. Cyber insurance is not included in this renewal. We're this week, myself, along with our IT consultant, we were filling out a comprehensive cyber insurance application, and we are currently awaiting their approval. So hopefully by the end of this year, I will hear back from our insurance provider.
okay, thank you. Councillor Statham.
Thank you very much, Magda, and through the chair. I reviewed this at length, and it's extremely frustrating that our insurance premiums are doubling every 5 years. If this continues, we're going to be paying $3.5 million by 2035. It's insane. So my question to you is there anything that we can do outside of shopping it? Because if there's only 2 providers, obviously there's no one to shop this from. But I just wondered if there was any ways that we can potentially within the municipality decrease our premiums. I'm thinking, I had a couple notes, but like, can we pool our resources with, I think there's municipal insurance pools. I think AMO offers one, I believe, where you pool, you have to, it's a collective bargaining thing. Where you can reduce your premiums. I'm not sure if I'm not super familiar with it, but I just wondered if that's something that we could maybe look into. And then I wondered if there's any other ways locally that we can reduce those premiums, like reviewing our claims history and seeing if there's trends, or I don't know, doing risk assessments, anything that we can do to decrease those premiums. I don't know if it's an option, and maybe you already looked into it, but.
So in the past, we have increased our deductibles, which kind of helped our bottom line. At this point, I think our claim experience is pretty clean. I don't recall having any claims last year. So we're in the constant communication with our insurance providers. There is a lot of training programs that they currently offer. And if there is any kind of opportunity for municipal staff to, attend those trainings and kind of find ways of how to reduce insurance costs, by all means, we will be attending those training seminars.
Okay, and in terms of insurance pools or associations that offer collective bargaining like AMO, is that something that we've ever looked into, or is that?
To be honest, I've never heard of it, but I can look into that.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else got anything on that? It's always hard to talk about. That's for sure. Okay, can I have the recommendation, please?
That West Elgin Council hereby receives the report from Embadura, CAO Treasurer, regarding 2025 municipal insurance renewal as set out in the renewal documents provided by Intact Public Entity dated November 26, 2024, and that West Elgin Council approves payment of the annual premium in the amount of $410,877 plus applicable taxes.
Mover, please. Deputy Mayor Tellier. Seconded, Councillor Denning. All in favour? It's carried. 7.5.2, compensation policy for non-unionised employees and wage increases.
Thank you, Mr.
Please.
Mayor. So this policy was kind of outstanding. I was supposed to bring this policy as soon as we had pay equity review done and approved. Unfortunately, with other things that came up, I didn't have a chance to bring it to council's attention earlier. However, as you recall, in January of 2023, West Elgin Council took a critical step toward modernizing its compensation practices, and they retained consultant to review our compensation program. This initiative resulted from longstanding need to address issues surrounding pay equity, internal equity, and market competitiveness, areas that had not been reviewed since 2015. The consultants' work began with a deep dive in the organizational structure, starting with existing salary grid, which consisted of 13 pay bands adjusted annually for cost of living increases based on the municipality's ability to pay. Despite these adjustments, it was evident that the compensation structure fell behind the competitive market, particularly given the challenges of attracting and retaining talent in the municipal sector. Additionally, an organizational review report from January 2020 highlighted the importance of updating job descriptions, supporting succession planning, and ensuring appropriate pay rates. In January of 2024, the consultant met with staff to refine project objectives and finalize tool systems, comparators, and processes. To ensure the accuracy of their evaluation, updated job descriptions were reviewed and revised to reflect current job duties and qualifications. A new 12-factor job evaluation system was introduced, designed to measure skill, effort, responsibility, and working condition. This system, widely used in the municipal sector, provided standardized and equitable approach to evaluating all positions. It also ensured compliance with the Pay Equity Act by addressing historical and systematic pay differences. The consultant's analysis extended to a custom market study, comparing West Elgin's compensation with 9 municipal organizations selected based on geographic proximity, scope of services, and organizational size. These findings revealed that, on aggregate, West Elgin compensated employees below the 50th percentile of the competitive pay market. This gap was more pronounced in certain positions, underscoring the need for adjustment to the salary grid. The attached policy prepared for the council's review is addressing key issue of pay equity review, consisting of internal equity, pay equity, market competitiveness, and organizational growth. This policy aligns with legislative requirements and supports the recruitment, retention, and motivation of qualified staff. Therefore, staff recommend adopting the non-union employee pay policy to ensure fair, competitive, and consistent compensation practices across the municipality of West Elgin. This policy aligns with legislative requirements and supports the recruitment, retention, and motivation of qualified staff. In parallel with the compensation review, the council endorsed a pay administration policy, which outlined procedures for annual adjustments to the pay grid. These adjustments were tied to the Ontario Consumer Price Index for all goods. For 2025, a proposed 2% adjustment aligned with the CPI is recommended, covering all staff categories, including full-time, part-time, seasonal, all unionized employees, firefighters, and council members. Please note that since the municipality and union have been unable to reach agreement, the collective agreement expired on December 31st, 2023. Earlier this year, the municipality implemented the terms and conditions of employment for all unionized employees, and therefore I recommend that CPI increases be applied to this group as well. On October 1st, 2024, the province announced the new minimum wage requirements, $17.20 per hour for most jobs and $16.20 per hour for students under 18 working 28 hours or less per week. The attached 2025 seasonal employee remuneration has been updated to reflect these changes. Additionally, the Port Glasgow Trailer Park Supervisor pay grid has been increased and aligned with the pay grid for non-unionized employees in supervisory roles. So, as I mentioned in my report, the policy is based on pay equity review recommendations as well as organizational review. So there are, in my report, there are 3 recommendations. So the first one, there's 4 recommendations because this comprehensive compensation policy is fairly new. And in case council requires more time before endorsing this policy, I added 3 more recommendations as it is important that if council endorses compensation policy, there is 2 other policies that need to be repealed as they contradict with our compensation policy, and as well as I would like to council to approve wage increase of 2%. That is in accordance with October Statistics Canada Ontario Consumer Price Index for all goods. So that can take effect as of January 1st, 2025. And also that West Elgin Council approves revised 2025 employee remuneration schedule for all seasonal employees. Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you. Any questions from council on that? I'm seeing none. Recommendation, please.
That West Elgin Council hereby receives the draft copy of the compensation policy from Embadura CAO Treasurer, and that West Elgin Council approves the policy as presented, and that West Elgin Council repeal policy HR 3.6 compensation policy and 2020-10 short-term acting positions policy, and that West Elgin Council approves wage increase of 2% in accordance with the October's Statistics Canada Ontario Consumer Price Index CPI for all goods, and that West Elgin Council approves revised 2025 employee remuneration schedule for seasonal employees.
Move it, please. Councillor Statham. Seconded. Councillor Doherty. All in favour? It's carried. Thank you. And we go to 7.5.3, 2024 EI premium reduction. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So EI premium reduction, council note, as you know, this report comes to council every year in December at the end of the year, just before we finalize payroll for the year. So For the employee, so basically EI premium reduction program is for the employees who provide their employees with a short-term disability plan. And there is a certain criteria that employers have to meet in order to get qualified for EI premium reduction. However, so basically, the difference between premium rate and reduced rate, there is a requirement that out of the total savings, we have to give our employees back 5/12. So basically, the total savings for this year for 2024 for our municipality are $4,647.23. And 18 of our full-time employees receive a total of $1,936.35 on their paycheck, equally split it among them as a payback for the prorated amount. So that's the requirement of legislative requirement.
Questions from council? Yes, Councillor Denny.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through the chair. Magda, if this policy isn't changing year over year, is this really something that we have to address each year? Or do we just address it if the 5/12 rule changes?
The amount changes every year. And this is the additional pay that our employees will be getting on their paycheck. So it has to.
So because that number changes every year, we have to address it.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions? Seeing none? Could I have the recommendation then, please?
That West Elgin Council hereby receives the report from Magda Badura, CAO Treasurer, and that West Elgin Council hereby approves payment from the Premium Employment Insurance Rate Reduction to all full-time employees in the total amount of $1,936.35, being 5/12 of the total savings of $4,647.23 realized by West Elgin in 2024.
Mover, please. Deputy Mayor Tellier, seconded. Councillor Doherty. All in favour? It's carried. Thank you. And we move right on to 7.5.5, sales of land.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Last one. This is the second time around. We have been advertising 2 lots on Center Street. Unfortunately, we received no bids at all. So I think we will be taking the advertisement down from Golf Deals, and perhaps in the new year, maybe we'll revisit this issue with council.
Any questions from council on that? We've all but tried. Okay, so I think, yeah, we'll try again at a later date. The recommendation, please.
That West Elgin Council hereby receives the report from M. Badura, CAO Treasurer, regarding sale of lands for information only.
Okay, mover, Deputy Mayor Tellier, seconded. Councillor Statham, all in favour? Carried, thank you. Go to 8, committee and board reports or updates. None? No. Councillor Denning.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through the chair. Just a really small update, I suppose, coming from the Arena Board Committee. The West Lorne Minor Hockey is going to be doing a little bit of a concession stand this year. They asked for permission to use that sort of ante-room between the warm room and the actual working kitchen. So for those of you familiar with the Arena, you know, there's that little area you go into to wait for your fries. Well, they're going to be using that space to sell snacks to raise money for West Lorne Minor Hockey. So just a heads up, if you go into the Arena, make sure you go in there and support West Lorne Minor Hockey.
not
you.
popcorn. No popcorn. That was very clear at the meeting. No popcorn. It's too much of a mess.
Okay. Thank you for that. Notice of motion. None received. Council inquiries and announcements. Seeing none. Correspondence. We all read through those, I take it. Recommendation, please.
That West Elgin Council hereby receive and file all correspondence not otherwise dealt with.
Okay, mover and seconder. Deputy Mayor Tellier, seconded. Councillor Denning, all in favour? It's carried. Thank you. Right, items requiring council consideration. 12.1, meeting starting time amendment for February the 13th, 2025.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll speak to this one. So just like we did, I believe it was in November, we have a staff leadership training. So the training is scheduled to go till 4 o'clock. So I'm just asking that the February 13th meeting start at 5 o'clock to accommodate that scheduling. The recommendation is that the start time for Thursday, February 13th, 2025 be amended to 5 o'clock PM to accommodate staff leadership training.
Questions from council? No, see no problem with that, and it makes everything work a lot better. Can I have a mover, please? Deputy Mayor Tellier, seconded. Councillor Doherty, all in favour? It's carried. Ombudsman review. This is something we have to show, so. Would you like to read the recommendation for it, or would you like to?
I have a comment.
Yeah, have a comment. Deputy Mayor Tellier.
Yeah, so we have an ombudsman review. Someone decided to have issue with the way we handled a meeting. We sit around this table to do all the best we can for our community. And all of us sit here and get very little compensation. We aren't here for the compensation, we're here for our community. And money used for taking us to an ombudsman could be used for things in our community. Our parks, our roads, our rec, our marina, anything. So we worry, I know I worry, at night, day, weekends, in the grocery store when I'm approached about our decisions. This decision made was full disclosure, great. That we tried to do our best for our community. And someone had issue with that is, as you can see, my voice breaking, upsetting and not okay. So if someone has an issue with the way that we handle things, we are open door policy, transparent, come visit us, come call us, email us, and we can get this dealt with. And that money can be used elsewhere for our community to keep supporting it instead of having it in a budget line where it's useless. Thanks.
Well said. Anybody else got a comment? I think you said it all. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Could we go from there, please?
The recommendation is that West Elgin Council hereby acknowledge receipt of the Ombudsman report dated December 2024 from Paul Dubé, Ombudsman of Ontario, regarding investigation into complaints about closed meetings held by the municipality of West Elgin on September 14th, September 22nd, September 28th, October 12th, and October 16th of 2023. And that council be vigilant in adhering to their individual and collective obligation to ensure that the municipality complies with its responsibilities under the Municipal Act 2001. And that council ensure that the public is provided with notice of all council meetings that contains the date, time, and location of the meeting, including specific information about how to access the meeting electronically if appropriate. And that when relying on the emergency meeting provisions in its procedural bylaw to hold a meeting without public notice, the municipality of West Elgin should ensure it meets the standard set by the procedural bylaw for an emergency and that council and staff commit to reviewing the West Elgin Procedural Bylaw 2024-05 to ensure compliance for all open meetings.
To say we've received it, can I have a mover, please? Deputy Mayor Tellier, seconded. Councillor Denning, all in favour? That's carried. A request, 12.3, request for fee waiver, Tiny Tots and breakfast with Santa. Yes, Deputy Mayor Tellier.
Through the chair, so Shelley Smith from Tiny Tots approached me on this and had said that they were going to ask for some monies, but unfortunately we had used all of our council money the day before when they had called us towards economic development to further them and have some great events with them. So yeah, they were just looking. They had a great turnout. I don't know if anybody saw. I don't have little ones anymore, but the traffic was brisk. Lots of people going in and out that morning, and the you know, the stakeholders, they all worked together very well to pull this together fairly last minute. And then they hope to do it next year or interchange between Dutton, Dunwich, West Elgin, Dutton, Dunwich, West Elgin, were their hopes. So they did have some expenses, as she said in her letter. Some of the local groups helped out with some fees and some monies, but they're looking for something a little further. So just give you a little background that's why they didn't have it in last year, as a last minute pulled together when they realized that that was a need and something people really wanted to respond to in the community.
Okay, questions from council? Being none. Is there a recommendation for that, please?
The recommendation is that West Elgin Council hereby approve or deny the request from Shelley Smith, Supervisor, RECE, Tiny Tots Cooperative Nursery School of Aldborough, Inc., for a fee waiver of $550 plus applicable taxes for the Breakfast with Santa event held on Saturday, December 7th, 2024. I'm not sure if maybe Magda wants to speak to this, where as the funding for the community grants was used in full for the Economic Development Committee.
Have you got anything to say at all, please?
Through the chair, there is, at this point, there is no money left. However, council provided permission to use the funds, but we're not going to release the funds until we received proof of purchase. Not sure if this is going to happen within the next few days. So I think, you know, I don't see why council cannot approve this. Absolutely.
It's actually in kind, isn't it? And if it's in kind, that's a little different.
And if it's in kind, if there is no financial implication, by all means. Yeah.
We need to support this, I believe.
You'll be on his naughty list. I'll make that motion.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Tellier. Seconded. Councillor Denning. All in favour? It's carried. Thank you. Okay, the way we go on to the fee waiver request. West Lawn Optimist Club water auction, January the 31st, 2025.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this was another request received for fee waiver. So this one is in 2025, but in speaking with CEO Treasurer Badura, we won't have the community grants available in time to approve this one with the 2025 grant applications. So it was suggested of putting it on this agenda for approval. So looking at the cost, it's estimated rental cost of $200 plus taxes for the event at $50 an hour.
Yeah, which you know, I tend to support these. I mean, anything they make goes back into the community, so you can't really get better than that. And again, it's in kind again, isn't it? It's for the use of the hall.
Yes, waiving the rental fees. So
Yeah.
yes, in kind.
That's my feeling on it. Anybody else from council? Okay, the recommendation, please.
The recommendation is that West Elgin Council hereby receive the request dated December 16th, 2024 from Joan Neal, co-chair, quarter auction event, West Lorne Optimist Club for fee waiver for a quarter auction to be held at the Rodney Recreation Center on Friday, January 31st, 2025 for an estimated rental cost of $200 plus applicable taxes, and that council hereby approved the request as presented.
Move it, please. Councillor Doherty, seconded. Councillor Denning, all in favour? It's carried, thank you. Committee and board reports and board appointments, sorry. Yes, okay. So what we will do then is I'm going to adjourn this meeting. We'll take, a recess for at least 15 minutes anyway. Okay, we're moving back into open session. And the first one we come to is 13.1, 2024-83, Committee and Board Appointment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a note before passing this bylaw that it will be amended to add the Port Glasgow Trailer Park Advisory Committee members of Councillor Statham and Councillor Doherty. So the recommendation is that bylaw 2023-83 as amended, being a bylaw to appoint members to the various boards, committees, and authorities in the municipality of West Elgin and repeal bylaw 2024-32 be read a first, second, third, and final time.
Move it, please. Deputy Mayor Tellery and Councillor Statham. Seconded. All in favour? Carried. Thank you. 13.2, 2024-84, Backyard Urban Chickens.
The bylaw 2024-84 being a bylaw to regulate and license the keeping of backyard hens within residential first density R1, Hamlet residential HR, rural residential RR zones in the municipality of West Elgin be read a first, second, third, and final time.
Any questions from council on that? Okay. Move it, please. Councillor Denning, seconded. Councillor Statham, all in favour? Carried, thank you. 13.3, 2024-85, development charges. Any questions on that? Seeing none. Recommendation, please.
The bylaw 2024-85 being a bylaw to establish development charges for the municipality of West Elgin be read a first, second, third, and final time.
Move it, please. Moved by Councillor Statham. Seconded. Councillor Doherty. All in favour? Carried, thank you. 13.4, 2024-86, drain debenture, the Yook drain, 10-year.
That bylaw 2024-86 being a bylaw to authorize the issue of debentures in the principal amount of $91,803.26 for the construction of the Yook drain be read a first, second, third, and final time.
Questions on council? Seeing none, move it, please. Deputy Mayor Tellier, seconded. Councillor Denning, all in favour? It's carried, thank you. 13.5, 2024-87, drain debenture, the Yook drain, 5-year.
That bylaw 2024-87 being a bylaw to authorize the issue of debentures in the principal amount of $18,493.78 for the construction of the Yook drain be read a first, second, third, and final time.
Questions on council? Seeing none, move it, please. Councillor Denning, seconded. Councillor Statham, all in favour? It's carried. 13.6 bylaw 2024-88, emergency management and encompassing bylaw.
So just to make note that this bylaw was put back on the agenda. It was previously passed at the end of 2023. However, in one of the groups that is mandatory for compliance, the fire chief was missing in the bylaw. So this is more just a housekeeping item to ensure that our bylaw is compliant.
Do you need a mover and a seconder?
I do. So the bylaw 2024-88 being a bylaw to adopt an emergency management program and emergency response plan and to meet other requirements under the Emergency Management and Civil Protection Acts and repeal bylaw 2023-98 be read a first, second, third, and final time.
Okay, mover. Deputy Mayor Tellier, seconded. Councillor Statham, all in favour? It's carried. And we move into a closed session.
That the Council of the Municipality of West Elgin hereby proceeds into closed session at 6:24 p.m. to discuss matters pursuant to the Municipal Act, Section 239(2)B, being personal matters about identifiable individuals, and Section 239(2)D, being labor relations or employee negotiations.
Move it to Deputy Mayor Tellier, seconded. Councillor Denning, all in favour? It's carried. Thank you.
Thank you for coming to council.
We're reporting from closed session. And the clerk, please.
Reporting from closed session at 7:47 p.m. Report from closed is that council received 7 items in compliance with the Municipal Act, Section 239(2)B, being personal matters about identifiable individuals, and Section 239(2)D, being labor relations or employee negotiations. Discussions resulted in the following recommendations. Recommendation 1 is that the CAO treasurer be authorized to proceed as directed by council.
Okay, that's it.
No, I need a mover and seconder, please.
Yeah.
A mover and seconder, please. Councillor Denning. And seconded by Councillor Statham. All in favour? That's carried. And we go to 16.
Nope.
No?
We've got lots left,
Oh,
sorry.
you've got to read.
Recommendation 2 is that West Elgin Council hereby receives the report from M. Badura, CAO Treasurer, regarding Special Projects Manager Agreement Extension, and that West Elgin Council provide an extension to the part-time employment agreement dated February 22nd, 2024 to June 30th, 2025, and provide authorization to increase his hours as required, but not to exceed 35 hours per week. Mover and seconder,
Mover,
please.
please. Deputy Mayor Tellier, seconded by Councillor Statham. All in favour? That's carried.
Recommendation number 3 is that West Elgin Council hereby appoint Travis Rudzant and Philip Sosa to the Economic Development Committee.
Okay, mover, please. Councillor Denning, seconded. Deputy Mayor Tellier, all in favour? That's carried. Thank you.
Along with the recommendations, the following statement is to be read in open session. Media release, Municipality of West Elgin, December 20th, 24. At the regular meeting of council on December 19th, 2024, the Municipality of West Elgin's Chief Administrative Officer, CAO, announced she will be officially transitioning from CAO, Treasurer, to the Manager of Corporate Services, Treasurer. Magda Badura joined the Municipality of West Elgin in 2015-16 as the Municipal Treasurer and progressed into the role of CAO Treasurer in 2019. During her tenure, Magda led the team through many challenges, including the COVID-19 pandemic. She's been a vital contributor to many implemented policies, programs, and partnership agreements. A statement from Mayor Richard Leatham. On behalf of West Elgin Council, I would like to express our profound appreciation to Magda for her commitment to the community and municipality. We thank Magda for her contributions as CAO Treasurer and look forward to continuing our working relationship as Manager of Corporate Services Treasurer. Council is confident that Magda will excel in this position. Statement from CAO Treasurer Magda Badura. While West Elgin has faced so many challenges in the past few years, I am proud of the work we have accomplished. Although the decision to transition into Manager of Corporate Services role was not easy, this will allow for a better work-life balance for myself and family. I look forward to continuing working alongside the senior leadership team, staff, and council, working for a shared vision for the municipality and assisting with the implementation of an interim CAO. I want to thank Mayor Leatham and council for the continuous support and encouragement, providing me with opportunities to learn and grow. In the coming weeks, the municipality of West Elgin will announce an interim CAO with plans to begin the recruitment process for a permanent CAO in the future. We wish to thank all residents and staff for their continued support and patience during this transition period.
Remove it? No.
No, it's just.
Okay, so we go on to 16, confirming bylaw.
That bylaw 2024-89, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the regular meeting of council held on December 19th, 2024, be read a first, second, third, and final time.
Move it, please. Councillor Doherty. Seconded. Councillor Statham. All in favour? That's carried. And that brings us on to adjournment.
That the Council of the Municipality of West Elgin hereby adjourn at 7:51 p.m. to meet again at 4:00 p.m. on Thursday, January 9th, 2025, or at the call of the chair.
Move it, please. Deputy Mayor Tellier. Seconder. Councillor Denning. All in favour? That's carried. Thank you.